Om Wage Jware Mum Wage Jware Mum 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 Om Wage Jware Mum Wage Jware Mum
Good morning and good evening, all of you. Right now, first some technical things. Here, Jasper, if you can translate into Chinese in the main room, that'll be good. Basically, if you need the audio to be Chinese or Spanish, you should go into the interpretation room now.
各位，现在我们有一些技术上的东西要跟大家 讲明一下。假如你需要中文翻译的话，请你现在进入中文的翻译课里面，你可以从你的电脑上找一个好像地球图案，一个圆形，然后里面是有个井字的那个图案，然后它是个英语叫做翻译 interpretation room， 然后你就找上去，你按下去，你会找到一个中文，一个中的字，然后你可以进去那边。
Claudia, if you are able to come into the main room, could you explain that in Spanish and tell people what to look for? They're to look for this icon with a globe, kind of an abstract globe, and then if they click there, they can see Espanol, then they can go there. Gracias. So happy that we are all together on the eve of Sakadawa and to begin this series on the Bodhicharyavatara.
Waiting in mute.
No, it's good. So, I'm especially appreciative to the fact that we have a good number of volunteers to help translate this into Spanish and into Chinese. So today, for Spanish, we have Claudia in Chile, and for Chinese, we have Wei Ting in Malaysia. So I have asked both the interpreters to basically hold up something to show me that they are done translating before I start again. Anyway, so as Atisha, the great Atisha, when he came to Tibet, he did not speak Tibetan. He was a realized being, but on a relative level, he did not speak Tibetan. And so he once made a remark. He said, no matter how able the teacher, even himself, someone like Atisha, he said, no matter how able the teacher, without interpreters, the teacher is basically mute, useless. Yeah, so we are going to begin now with the usual opening recitations. The opening recitations we do is in the style of the Drigong Kagyo lineage. So we begin with the aspiration and action bodhicitta prayer, followed by refuge and the four immeasurables. So as we know, the entire topic of the Bodhicharyavatara is in fact bodhicitta. Then it discusses the central concept, central topic of bodhicitta through using the 6 paramitas of the Bodhisattva path. So although each of the paramitas or each of the perfections of the Bodhisattva path, which is giving, disciplined conduct, patience, vigilance, meditative concentration, and wisdom. So each of these paramitas, each of these perfections have many different aspects. But in Bodhicharyavatara, Shantideva is going to explain each of these perfections entirely through the lenses, so to say, of the concept of bodhicitta. So it's very helpful. It's a very focused look at this topic of bodhicitta in this text. Yes, so we begin with the recitation. Since today is the first day and we have people participating from different languages, so we will make it neutral. I will chant in Tibetan. Some of you already know these opening recitations very well, so no problem even if I chant in Tibetan. For those of you who are new to this, don't worry. That slowly, you know, you will learn. You will know what these words mean. And if you don't know what bodhicitta means, also don't worry. This is the whole point that we are going to be participating in this course, in this series, is by relying on Shantideva, the meaning of bodhicitta becomes clearer and clearer, not just intellectually, but also at the heart level, which then translates, hopefully, translates into action level. The 4 recitations, the 4 things we recite at the opening. First 2, as I say, is aspiration bodhicitta, an action bodhicitta. Then it's taking refuge, and then it's meditating on the four immeasurables. Now, even the refuge, it's about bodhicitta. The four immeasurable minds, it's about bodhicitta. So in fact, you can say all four recitations, it's about bodhicitta. Jebe dra no par jebe ke tarpa dan tam je kembe bardu jobra jeba tam je ge su jebe ma nang ka da nyambe sen jen tam je dewa dan ten tung ya dan de ne de la na me pa yang ta bra so be chan ju rim po je Dobra Nala Dhamma Jebe Da Nobar Jebe Gek Darba Dan Tam Je Kembe Baridu Jobra Jeba Tam Je Gesu Jebe Ma Nang Kadang Nyambe Senjen Tam Je Dewa Dan Den Dunga Dan Dre Nerdu Lana Me Pa Yang Dabra Sobe Janju Rimpo Je Dobra Dala Dhamma Jebe Da Nobar Jebe Gek Tarba Dan Tam Je Kembe Baridu Jobra Jeba Tam Je Gesu Jebe Ma Nang Kadang Nyambe Senjen Tam Je Dewa Dan Den Dunga Dan Dre Nerdu Lana Me Pa Yang Dabra Sobe Janju Rimpo Je Dobra Je De Sama Gege Bardu Lunga Yisum Kewa Laku Mashi Bardu Lunga Yisum Kewa Laku Du Dering Ne Sunte Ne Ma Chanta Samgi Bardu Lunga Yisum Kewa Laku Zangye Jodan Sogi Jonamla Chanchu Bardu Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinsu Gibe Sonangi Rola Pencher Sanje Drubrashu Sanje Jodan Sogi Jonamla Chanchu Bardu Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinsu Gibe Sonangi Rola Pencher Sanje Drubrashu Sanje Jodan Sogi Jonamla Chanchu Bardu Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinsu Gibe Sonangi Rola Penche Sanje Drubrashu Manang Kadang Nyampe Senjen Tamje Dewa Dang Dewe Gindan Dambra Gyuchi Dungyao Dang Dungyao Gi Gyudang Drewa Gyuchi Dungyao Mebe Dewa Dame Drewa Gyuchi Nering Chadang Nidang Drewa Tangyang La Nebra Gyuchi Manang Kadang Nyampe Senjen Tamje Dewa Dang Dewe Gindan Dembra Gyurji Dungyao Dan Dungyao Gi Gyudan Dewa Gyurji Dungyao Mepe Dewa Dame Dewa Gyurji Nering Chadang Nidang Dewe Tangyang La Nebra Gyurji Manang Kadang Nyampe Senjen Tamje Dewa Dan Dewe Gindan Dembra Gyurji Dungyao Dan Dungyao Gi Gyudan Dewa Gyurji Dunga Mebe Dewa Dame Dewa Gyurji Nering Chada Nidang Dewa Tangyong La Nebra Gyurji Druji Jamwan Dele Naro Dama Mi Dapo Badu Jidin Gun Kadin Sunden Sawai La Mesham Sajul La Ma Yidam Chokyong La Sova Dem So Dagi Jin Jilo Gyab Drengi Dome Samling Gen Tope Don Song Yong La Gyab So Me Gya Wa Durji Chang Pa Jidin Gun Pui Shab La Du Du Ta Du Sam Gyu Gyu Le Me Jin Jin Lo Shi Tu Ji Jin Ning Gim Pa Se Ne Gyang Sin Ta De Du Dobra Jin Jilo Hong Jin Yu Jin Le Chang Sam Pe Ma Gya Sa Dong Po La Ya Sen Ju Gen Ga Dum Nye Pema Juni Shishu Da Guru Kando Mampu Ko Keki Jisen Ta Dungi Jin Jin Long Jin Shishu So Guru Pema Se De Hong Omi
mi ju gen ye gen po dang ne de sun san je gun gen ho ne ran zen ju gun sun don ze ba za we la me sha la so wa de za je bogi ju je me do dam re la len jin nen de gen ba de san je shin do me te bo wa ye do gun nam da jin la ge wa re jo gu zo yong zo la me zo nan la jin nan sang sun de shin ne ge jo da lo lon jo nang si yong she la me jo ge nga de so du so ja se ho ba dan jo jing sha ba dan je se yi rang gu sing so ba yen ge wa jo se da ge che song ba tham je so be chang je je rng o gu ru de ba da ge ni ra na men da la bra de ja so ha sim jing nam ge sam ba da lo yi ji da wa je jong tu mo de ba ye jo ge go lo go de so So, following the four opening recitation, I recited prayers to the lineage gurus, to the root guru, and then to offer mandala in order to receive these precious teachings. These are rituals or conventions that the generations of great teachers have tested, have verified to be helpful in cultivating the states of mind that these conventions are designed by the Buddha to help us give rise to those skillful and virtuous states of mind. They were designed, these conventions, these rituals, these practices, they were designed by the Buddha and the lineage masters based on the fact that the Buddhas and these great masters have perceived reality as it is. So they're not designed based on, some whimsical some random guesses. This is because Buddha has seen reality as it is, nature of reality, appearance of reality, so he understands what we need. So we need to know how to be skillful in adopting these conventions, these practices, these rituals.
if you mistake these conventions, these practices, these rituals as, an end unto themselves, then you get stuck on simply going through the motions. And those motions are not leading to the mind states, the states of mind, the states of heart, that the Buddha has identified as virtuous and skillful and has encouraged us to cultivate. So especially, those of us who are attracted to Tibetan Buddhism, to the colors and the sounds, we have to be careful not to, get carried away by all the colors and the sounds and the display, and to learn how to skillfully relate to the practices. One time I remember I was visiting our monastery in Dehradun in India, and I was with my teacher, visiting him in his room. Rather unexpectedly, he was there. So then somebody else came in, and this person was visiting from Europe, and he was sort of, kind of in a blissful state, And then he said, after he exchanged the hellos and everything, he said to Rinpoche, he said, I just came from the so-and-so ritual. They have been doing this for the last 5 days. He said, every day I go, I feel so good, Then Rinpoche said, oh, that's good, that's good. Then Rinpoche said, but I don't think in Buddha's time that was going on. But if it's helpful to you now, then yes, of course, it's helpful. But don't forget, mainly what Buddha and his disciples did. The guy was kind of shocked out of his bliss, And I would add, in the 10th, 11th, 12th centuries, when such great beings as Atisha, Milarepa, Gampopa, Pomodrupa, and then founder of Drigung Kagyo Jigten Sumgen. I'm pretty sure that when they were alive, there weren't also that many pujas to do. Again, don't get me wrong, they can be helpful, but we have to see clearly, what is the cause, what is result, how to engage the causes so that they lead to results. So I remember when I was a young teenager, when I went, I would go to these group practices, and this was in a Chinese monastery where they had monthly communal practices, 3 nights consecutively a week. So one time when I remember this, when we were about to start, someone I recognize, who I've never, I know this person from before, but I've never seen him at this place. But he was coming from the front and came back and then sat next to me as the practice was about to start. And he was looking a little unhappy, I said hello, and then I said, what's going on? Why did you come from the front? The practice was about to start, and then he said, I got yelled at by a bodhisattva. So when he said that, both of us kind of laughed, but not too loudly, because you get yelled at. We kind of both laughed, and he also got a moment of release because he realized the absurdity of the situation. So basically, up in the front, behind the monks and nuns, the rows up there are kind of reserved for people who have taken their bodhisattva vows. Then you wear a particular kind of robe. So this guy is new, so he didn't know, he just thought, that there's empty space up there, so he went up there. Then somebody up there yelled at him and said, hey, you don't have bodhisattva vows. This is only for bodhisattvas. Go back there. So he got yelled at by a bodhisattva. So as he was laughing, telling what happened, I said to him, I said, well, I suppose if you're going to get yelled at, it's better to get yelled at by a bodhisattva than a non-bodhisattva. Yeah, so we have to know, how to properly, skillfully practice. Otherwise, like Gampopa says, if you don't know how to practice the Dharma, even something as precious as the Dharma can lead you to the lower realms. If you don't know how to practice Dharma. Of course, we should not arrogantly think, oh, I know the Dharma. I don't need to practice. I don't need the conventions. I don't need the rituals, That also won't work, because more likely what's going on is not so much you know the Dharma from the heart. You know it as theory. You know it as ideas. Then you think, oh, I got it, And so we also need the practice, we need the conventions, we need the rituals, because they are potentially ways to let the Dharma sink from here to here, so to say, to get from here to here. For Dharma to get from here to here often is kind of interesting, even exciting. But for Dharma to get from here to here, kind of boring. But if it doesn't get here, not much use up here. In fact, can even cause a lot of stress. So anyway, these are some preliminary comments, and then also to say, that when we study the Dharma, to get from here to here, here to here, also good to remember what's known as the Four Reliances. And they're often called the Four Reliances, but I want to change the name of this to the 8 Reliances. The reason for that is this. So the Four Reliances, in a very pithy way, Buddha taught this. He says, rely on the words and not the person teaching those words. So it says, rely on the words and not the person. But I can say, practically, it's not that you don't rely on the person. Where you get your Dharma from, you want to make sure that, whoever is teaching it, first of all, they know what they're talking about. Second of all, you want to have some confidence that they not only know what they're talking about up here, but they have some understanding of it here, right? So you search for reliable guides to introduce you, to explain to you. So that this first reliance is not so much that you throw away these guides, these sources, reliable sources of information and guidance. But remember that even as you rely on this reliable source of inspiration and guidance, the reason is so that you can rely on the teachings. You can get the teachings. So rely on the teachings. So the first reliance is rely on the teachings, on the Dharma teachings, and not the one who gave the teachings. Then, the next set is rely on the meaning and not on the words. So now that we have we are receiving Dharma teachings, of course, you have to rely on the words. But understand that the reason why you even pay attention to the words, the way it is said, the vocabulary, maybe the grammar, all of that, that's not an end unto itself. The real reason there is why we pay attention to the words is so that we get the meanings. So that's the second. Many of us get very stuck on words, especially if we have read too many Buddhist books. And then we're confused over, what all these words are. Then we want to really debate words, Then even when we go to Dharma teachings, we are wanting to debate. Then the third is when it comes to meaning. What we should strive for is the definitive meaning rather than the initial temporary meaning. So what this means is even among the teachings, right? There are some preliminary understandings that we develop, right? But recognize that they are preliminary. There is a deeper meaning that we should strive for. So it says, rely on the definitive meaning rather than the interpretable meaning, the temporary meaning. This then finally takes us to the fourth one, which is, so now once that we have a certain degree of, you can say, kind of definitive meaning, it's still rather intellectual, yes, right? Now it says, rely on wisdom and not ordinary consciousness, ordinary thinking. Usually how this fourth one is explained, I find it a little unsatisfactory. Usually how this fourth one is explained is they say, well, you have to trust, what the Buddha said, because that's wisdom. And then what you think about, that's ordinary consciousness. Yes, of course, that is true. But I think there is a deeper meaning to this fourth one. This fourth one, sometimes I think if it is not interpreted well, the scenario that arises is, you arrive at the door of studying the Dharma with an open mind and with a healthy critical mind, not the negative critical, but a healthy critical mind, inquisitive, wanting to know. So you remain very open, very curious all along. And then you get to the fourth part. Suddenly, it's like a reverse brainwash. Like, oh, no more thinking now. Because it says don't rely on ordinary consciousness, rely on wisdom. So that happens, I see how people, after 20 years, now they have become, from outsiders' observation, like brainwashed, because they have become somehow, they arrive, with a good state of mind and attitude, then they become believers because of superficial, I think, understanding of this fourth line, which is rely on wisdom, don't rely on ordinary consciousness. It's not talking about, oh, you have to trust Buddha's words. Your own thinking is unreliable. I think that's slightly mistaken to think of the fourth line as regarding that matter. The fourth line, I think, pertains to when we have already have a good understanding of the Dharma, then at that point, the fourth line, I feel, is talking about now you put them into practice. Now it's at the level of changing mind, at the level of transforming our afflictive emotions. So there is basically saying, work on removing the afflictive emotions. That's the ordinary consciousness. Remove those afflictive emotions. And when you work on removing afflictive emotions, like abandoning anger, jealousy, impatience, annoyance, all of that, when we work on removing that, then wisdom will naturally shine forth. You don't need to concoct. You don't need to produce wisdom. Because if you're doing that, likely it's going to be some form of confusion. But what you can do is get rid of afflictive emotions. So do that. I feel this is the meaning of this fourth line. So now I want to give a chance for any questions or comments. You can also type your questions in the chat. If for whatever reason you are not able to just use the audio, then somebody will read out the questions. If not, we'll continue. And also I want to give a suggestion. So now we have interpretation, right? So there are periods of moments where nothing in particular is going on, so to say. So my suggestion is that don't treat the period of nothing in particular is going on and waste those moments. So if you only understand one language, then after you listen to that language, then during the period where nothing in particular is going on, if you can let your mind quiet down and watch your breath, awareness of breath, that is really good. If you're unfamiliar with this method and you're very comfortable with mantra, then, recite mantra and let your mind settle down. Then if you're also unfamiliar with mantra and unfamiliar with watching your breath, then you can, maybe sip some tea with the goal of letting both body and mind kind of quiet down, settle down. So then, it's not that after 2 hours, you have only used 1 hour and then wasted another hour. So that you can have this whole period as a period of practice and not let your mind wander. Yes. Okay. Oh, okay. Here. Uh-huh. Go ahead and ask. Okay, thank you. The first question, first question, I think, probably isn't really a question. It's describing, our situation. Why are the afflictive emotions so difficult to remove even after many years? It's because, how many lifetimes have we habituated these afflictive emotions? And even this lifetime, how often we are habituating these disturbing emotions. And I don't know about you, for myself, I can honestly say, yeah, after so many years of Dharma and all of that. But then if I'm honest about talking about after so many years, after so many years, it's not like after so many years of actually working on removing those afflictive emotions, Each day, maybe 20 minutes was spent on a good day of trying to dehabitualize the afflictive emotions and then habituate the skillful states of mind. Overall, average maybe 20 minutes, right? The other 23 hours and 40 minutes is spent habituating the unskillful states of mind. So here we are, to avoid the danger of, Dharma getting stuck in the head and never entering the heart. Oh, I think that basically requires that we are honest about what we are actually doing. Look at ourselves with honesty. And so introspection, being able to be honest with ourselves, am I letting this sink into my heart, or am I just collecting information? So I hope that by us, studying, learning about what Shantideva has to tell us, we can study this, we can learn this, not just, through the head, but also through the heart. The head and the heart has to go hand in hand.
Some people mistakenly say, I don't want to study, I don't want to, I don't want to learn. That also won't work. It's sort of like saying, you have some kind of illness so that you have a hard time digesting food, right? Then the solution is not, oh, I'm going to stop eating now. Because I have a problem digesting food, so I'm not going to eat now. So we instead, right, we learn what to eat, what not to eat, when to eat, how much to eat. Then we address the underlying physical problems that is preventing a good digestive system, all of that. Yeah. So now, the text Bodhicharyavatara. So Bodhicharyavatara, or Bodhisattva Charyavatara, the person who first taught this, who composed this and taught this, his name is Shantideva, and he lived in the 8th century. He was born in the royal family and destined to follow in his father's footsteps and to be king. But it is said that when it came time for him to be the king, it is said that the Bodhisattva Manjushri intervened and came in a vision to Shantideva, which basically convinced Shantideva that he should not take over his father's kingdom, but instead he should leave and join the spiritual life. And so then he became a monk, and then he became a student at this great Buddhist seat of learning called Nalanda. And so he became a student at Nalanda University for his training. So his secular name was Shantivarman. Then when he became a monk, his name changed to Shantideva. It is said that at Nalanda, over time, people kind of develop a critical attitude towards him,
Because as far as other people could see, he doesn't seem to be doing anything much. So much so that he acquired a nickname, which is Bushuku. Bushuku is a contraction of 3 words in Indian language, which is basically those 3 words translates to eating, sleeping, and defecating, going to the toilet. But one interpretation says eating, sleeping, and walking around. So you get the point, whichever of the you choose, walking around or going to toilet. So they say, this guy, all he does is, we see him sleeping, we see him eating, and we see him walking around, or we see him going to the toilet. He doesn't seem to be doing anything other than that. Now, of course, the reality is because he was very, very intelligent and very, very developed in his heart and mind. So to his peers, he wasn't working hard. But in fact, he was learning fast and he was experiencing them, changing his mind. So in other words, he was a secret practitioner. Right? He did not make a big show of his knowledge or his experience. He kept that secret so that all people could see was just, oh, he sleeps, he eats, and he walks around. He goes to the toilet. But he was a real practitioner, a secret practitioner. So in a way, we should all be Bushuku. So one reason we should be Bushuku is we should not make a big show of our Dharma study and practice. Then, other than doing what is necessary to stay alive, eating, sleeping, and going to the toilet or walking around, we should spend our time practicing the Dharma. So that's another meaning, another reason why we should be Bushuku. Ideally, of course. And not just 20 minutes a day. And we should also be Bushuku in the sense that even when we are only eating, sleeping, walking around, going to toilet,
we should always be practicing Dharma. We should always apply Dharma. So Bushuku is actually a very good name, a very good example. Anyway, it said that the particular circumstance of him teaching this text is that, his fellow students, they were, a little, not a little, probably they were very kind of jealous of him because he doesn't seem to be doing anything in particular. But then the authorities at Nalanda seems to tolerate him because, he was about to be the king. So who dares to say anything to him? So then one day they thought, we're going to embarrass him. So they started a new kind of rule that says every student here, from today onwards, every day we will have one person sit on the teaching throne, on the teaching seat, and give a teaching. So, people started doing that. So the day came for Shantideva, and of course they designed this to embarrass him. So they say to Shantideva, so now your turn. So then it said that when he came to the location where he was supposed to teach, then the usual seat that they have there, they make it very high. So on the surface, they sort of say, oh, because you are a prince, you are, you came from royal family, so we put a very high seat. But then the other side of that is they are embarrassing him because he can't quite get up there. But it is said that he was able to get up there, and not only that, when he started to recite this text, spoke this text, he began to levitate bit by bit by bit, until it says that when it reached chapter 9, verse 34, chapter 9, the chapter on wisdom, verse 34, he disappeared. But they could still hear his voice, but he rose up so high that he disappeared. And this story suggests to me, you know, that like us human beings, you know, sometimes it's not enough when we hear something very profound, we hear something very amazing, you know, we still like to see some magic tricks. So Shantideva, you know, after this miracle of teaching this text, you know, just extemporaneously, he still have to do some magic tricks, you know, and float up and disappear. So the rest of us who don't know how to float and disappear, then, you know, a little bit hard to get some attention. So it said that then Shantideva disappeared, you know, and he left Nalanda. So people are like, where did it go, you know? So he left Nalanda. Then later it said that they found him in South India. And at that point, there were two versions of Bodhicharyavatara circulating, even within Shantideva's lifetime. There is the Kashmiri version, which is from the northern region, and there is the Magadha version, which is from the central area. Magadha version has 1,000 verses, and the Kashmiri version has 700 verses. So then Shantideva said, actually, it's in 1,000. So the Magadha version is the more complete one. So in terms of the transmission of this text to Tibet, it seems like at the very beginning, very early on in the in like the 9th, 10th century, they first got the 700 verses version. Then later they got the 1,000 verses version. So this one that we have now, that is used universally in Tibetan Buddhism, is the one with the 1,000 verses divided into 10 chapters. Other than in the Tibetan canon, this text is also in the Chinese Buddhist canon. The Sanskrit still exists, but the one that exists has only 700 verses. So first, the title of the text, Bodhisattva or Bodhicharyavatara.
The existing Sanskrit text that we have, the title is Bodhicharyavatara. But in the Chinese canon and the Tibetan canon is Bodhisattva Charyavatara. So the difference is between Bodhi and Bodhisattva, but in the end, no real difference. So basically 3 words, right? Bodhisattva or Bodhi, Charya, and Avatara. Avatara literally to enter. So like in the Hindu tradition, avatara refers to like the various incarnation of God. So how God enters into our world. So there's that meaning of avatara in the Hindu tradition. Here, what are we entering? How to enter into Bodhisattva Charya. What is Charya? Charya is conduct or way of life. So how to enter, meaning engage in the Bodhisattva's way of life. So Bodhicharyavatara or Bodhisattva Charyavatara means this is how we go into. This is how we live the life of a bodhisattva. So this is the meaning of the title. So Bodhisattva Charyavatara has 10 chapters, as I mentioned. So if you have the text, you should look at it. Whether it's in English or Spanish or Chinese, you should look at it and look at the table of contents. So in the Tibetan commentarial tradition associated with the Tibetan Bodhicharyavatara commentarial tradition, they say that there is one dedication prayer that we do all the time, and that dedication prayer is a summary of the 10 chapters of Bodhisattva Charyavatara. And that prayer is Changju Semjo Rinpoche Magye Panam Ke Gyurji Kyapa Nyamba Mepa Yang Gong Ne Gong Du Pyo Sho. So Changju Semjo Rinpoche, first line is excellent and precious bodhicitta. So first line, excellent and precious bodhicitta. That corresponds with the first chapter, which is called The Excellence of Bodhicitta. Makye Panam Ke Gyurji is where it has not arisen, may it arise. That corresponds to chapter 2 and chapter 3. So then the third line, Kyapa Nyamba Mepayang, which is and where it has arisen, may it not decline. That is chapter 4, 5, 6. Gong ne gong du pelwa shore, the last line, and may it increase higher and higher. That is chapter 7, 8, and 9. And chapter 10, the chapter on dedication, you can say is also this last line, so that the merit of bodhicitta never declines, becomes higher and higher and higher until full Buddhahood is achieved. So this prayer that we do all the time, from now on, right, when you do it, you should remember, oh, this is actually talking about Bodhicharyavatara, the 10 chapters in there. Then another way of looking at these 10 chapters is to divide the 10 chapters to see that they actually, as I mentioned earlier, the 6 perfections, the 6 paramitas are also in this text. So the title of chapter 6, 7, 8, 9 is clearly the last 4 perfections. Patience, diligence, meditative concentration, and wisdom. Then what about the first 2 perfections, the first 2 paramita, the perfection of giving and the perfection of disciplined conduct? The perfection of giving is taught in chapter 2 and 3 and 10. And the perfection of disciplined conduct, that is taught in chapter 4 and 5. Then, you can also say chapter 1, 2, and 3 more directly is addressing aspiration bodhicitta. And the other chapters addresses action bodhicitta. So these are just kind of general ways. Again, don't get too stuck, Of course, if you were training to be a scholar in the tradition, then lots of, lines drawn, cutting it up, dividing it this way, that way, half of this verse belongs to this point, the other half of this verse belongs to that point. But we're not studying Bodhicharyavatara to become scholars. We are studying Bodhicharyavatara to learn how to enter into the Bodhisattva's way of life, to embark on this journey of being a Bodhisattva so that we arrive at the destination of being Buddhas. And so we begin with chapter 1, first verse. So this first chapter is called The Excellence of Bodhicitta. And in most translations, you will see there is one line that says, "Homage to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas." Just to point out, this is not in the original text. This was put there by the translators of this text into Tibetan. So when we listen to the Dharma, remember, right, the four reliances that I mentioned? Also, we should adopt the attitude of, the person who is teaching us the Dharma is like a doctor, is like a physician. And we are like the patients with a health condition. And then what the doctor prescribes, that's the Dharma. Then also when we are learning the Dharma, it says that, we should not be a upside down pot, meaning the mouth of the pot, is at the bottom. So what that means is, then no matter how much, someone is pouring, it will not go into this pot. So this is the fault of being physically present, but mentally absent, distracted, or uninterested. So then that's like an upside down pot. And then it says we should not be a leaky pot. That means there are holes. Then no matter how much is poured in, it keeps leaking out. So that means, we don't retain anything. Goes in this ear, goes out this ear. Then the third is don't be a contaminated pot. Don't be a poisonous pot. So that means, then no matter how good the thing that is being poured into the pot, it becomes spoiled. This is talking about be careful with like mistaken views, perverting what we are hearing. Turning whatever dharma we hear, into poison. Avoid that. Of course, this is the most difficult to avoid because sometimes we don't even know, that poison is there. So the first verse of Bodhicharyavatara, let me first read the translation that I have. Then, in Chinese and in Spanish, you can read that verse. It says, "To those who go in bliss, the Dharmakaya they possess, and all their heirs. To all those worthy of respect, I reverently bow. According to the scriptures, I shall now in brief describe the practice of the Bodhisattva discipline." So this stanza, this opening stanza, is Shantideva paying homage to the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And stating very clearly what is the topic of this teaching. The topic of this teaching is the practice of Bodhisattva discipline. So the Buddhas are those who go in bliss, sugata, go in bliss and also gone to bliss, meaning those who have achieved the state of bliss. They are the Buddhas. The Dharmakaya that they possess is referring to Dharma. Here, the Dharmakaya they possess is a poetic way of saying the truth, the Dharma, the reality that they have realized directly. and their heirs, or literally their sons. This is talking about those who come in their footsteps, those who... the reason why sons is used is, of course, reflective of ancient India and their cultural values, which is that the sons are the ones that will become the kings. So in a more neutral way, we say their heirs, their successors. So the imagery here is that here are the Bodhisattva Sanghas. These are the ones that will take over the responsibility of the king when they themselves become kings. So this is the Sangha. Then the next verse, right? It says, "Here I shall say nothing that has not been said before, and in the art of prosody I have no skill. I therefore have no thought that this might be of benefit to others. I wrote it only to habituate my mind." Yeah? Yeah, so here, Shantideva is, is taking, you can say, a humble position. He says, what I say here, it's like, there's nothing new here. And so, in fact, you have already heard these things. And so I say this here, I offer this here, not even thinking that, that you don't know this and I need to tell this. But if anything, I say this to remind myself of these crucial points of training. So he says, I wrote this, I composed this only to habituate my mind. To remind me again and again. Yeah, so this notion of habituating our mind, that is actually the definition of practice or to cultivate. When we say, oh, practice, 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 practice. These days, I like to use a different word, cultivate. To cultivate, to encourage, to develop, right? So that's what we are practicing. That's what we're cultivating. We're cultivating skillful states of mind, skillful states of the heart mind. Another way of talking about it is to habituate. Why we experience this as suffering and samsara is because we have habituated suffering and samsara. How we are going to be free from suffering and samsara is to rehabituate. to habituate the virtuous states of mind. So Shantideva says, this is for habituating our minds. And the next verse is verse 3. My faith will thus be strengthened for a little while, that I might grow accustomed to this virtuous way. But others who now chance upon my words may profit also, equal to myself in fortune. So this is here he is expressing a joyful attitude, meaning he's optimistic. He's optimistic that in composing this, he can further accustom, further habituate himself in this virtuous way. And also he takes delight, he's encouraged by, he's optimistic that this might, maybe also help others who happen to come across it. So his optimism here is based on the thought of changing himself and the potential to also change others. And changing through the power of bodhicitta. Altogether, these three verses, it is said there are four main elements. The element of paying homage, the element of making a commitment, the element of a humble attitude, and the element of a joyful attitude. So one great master who wrote a commentary on this in the 20th century, Khenpo Kunzang Pelden, often contracted to Khenpo Kunpel. Khenpo Kunpel is the immediate disciple of a great master called Patru Rinpoche. And Patru Rinpoche really greatly propagated Bodhicharyavatara. It's said that before Patru Rinpoche, Bodhicharyavatara was only studied in the Buddhist universities, to train scholars. But Patru Rinpoche taught this to everyone and taught this continuously. And so his main disciple, one of his main disciples, Khenpo Kunpel, wrote a commentary. And in his commentary, he says, these three verses, there are four main elements. paying homage, making a commitment. In this case is making a commitment to compose this text, to teach this text, then humble and joyful. These are the four elements, he says. So he says, these four elements, especially in the context of Dharma practice, Dharma endeavors, but even, he says, in non-Dharma, in worldly life, he says, if you have these four elements in whatever that you are doing, whatever you try to accomplish, then your chances of accomplishing them will be a lot greater if you have these four elements. Paying homage means having the right point of reference. Because if we have the wrong point of reference when we try to accomplish something, if we pay homage, so to say, to the wrong objects of homage, then we're not going to succeed in whatever undertaking that we're doing. So paying homage is having the right point of reference. In terms of Dharma practice, our point of reference is Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Then, commitment means determination, not giving up so easily. Stay the course. Not so easily, like, oh, it's too cold, I cannot practice. Oh, it's too hot, I cannot practice. Oh, it's perfect temperature, I need to go take a nap. Then sometimes, we can also get very superstitious, We do a particular practice or we attend something and then we say, oh, I don't know, I'm feeling a little strange. I cannot sleep, I cannot eat, or, oh, maybe this is a negative sign, It's like, no, these are, part of the process. If we easily get superstitious, then we're not going to achieve our goal. Then the humble mind. No matter how much we know, no matter how well prepared we are, we should remain humble. Because we never know, what kinds of challenges that might come up, what else we have to learn. If we don't have this humble mind, then we will never improve. And so we will never reach our goal. So the humble mind. Humility is not pessimism. Don't mistake those two. Having humble mind doesn't mean, oh, I cannot, I can only do this much. I don't know. Will I succeed? No, that's not humble mind. Then the fourth one is joyful mind. Oh, here, basically you can say optimism. You need to be encouraged. You need to encourage yourself. You need to look at the bright side, so to say. You have to have the can-do attitude. So when you have these four, homage, commitment, humble, and joyful, then we can accomplish what we set out to do. So these are the first three verses. So that means we have, 977 verses to go? But if we have these four types of attitudes, these four ingredients, then no problem. 977 to go, no problem. So let's see if we have any questions or comments. We have reached the time, 11 o'clock. But I want to give a brief chance for some questions or comments.
Dr. Lee, I have one question that I missed before.
Yes, sure.
Which is related with the third reliance. If you could explain a little more.
Sure. The third reliance, right? To clarify. The
Yes.
third reliance is instead of relying on preliminary initial meaning that you can derive from the teachings, you should understand that these teachings are pointing to a definite ultimate meaning. So between the two, rely on the ultimate meaning rather than the what's often called interpretable meaning.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Is the trick that was set for Shantideva to ascend to his throne in giving the treatment, or the teaching, is that considered skillful by those monks who set a trick for him? How is it regarded now over time?
Oh no, the monks were trying to embarrass him.
Right. So that was not skillful. And
No,
so,
no, they were up to no good.
right. So what's the sort of way that over time that was turned into a lesson in teaching for us?
What do you mean?
Well, I guess I mean, it speaks for itself. It seems that they were being mischievous and,
Yes.
and tricky.
Yes.
And was that discussed later, that kind of behavior?
No, just like, this is what happens,
It speaks for itself.
Yeah, this is what happens,
Yeah, right.
I mean, they're not particularly bad people, but it just goes to show, even in the monastery, even when everybody is, at least, on some level, you're there to do the right thing and everything, but nonetheless, you can get caught up in like, we need to teach this guy a lesson.
Right.
They were judging him,
and then he ascends to another place.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Bigger
yeah.
the front, bigger the back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Other questions or comments? So if anyone sees any questions in the chat, go ahead and read for me, because my computer is set away from me and I don't really see what goes on in the in the chat. And the interpreters are busy interpreting. So anyone, just be generous. That's how you practice giving.
What is the book of Patrul Rinpoche about Shantideva?
Oh, Patrul Rinpoche himself did not write a book, but about his disciples kind of wrote what he taught. So one of them is the commentary by Khenpo Kunpel. It's called The Nectar of Manjushri's Speech. That's the title of the commentary. If somebody else can quickly look that up and share on the chat, it's called The Nectar of Manjushri's Speech. By Khenpo Kunsampel then. So different lineages have different commentaries on the Bodhisattva Charyavatara in terms of the different lineages of Tibetan Buddhism. By and large, all the different lineages, the commentary is by and large the same, except for when we get to chapter 9, the chapter on wisdom. Then there are some differences in terms of how the content of chapter 9 is interpreted. Again, that is more scholarly matters. We won't necessarily get into all those different, debates in and out, and they say this, we believe that, they believe that. Yeah, so the next time we meet, which is on Saturday, then we're going to look at, so verse 4 and 5 is talking about, is highlighting, how our body becomes a basis for cultivating bodhicitta, and how our mind becomes a basis for cultivating bodhicitta. Then from verse 6 to 8 is talking about how bodhicitta excels, all the other things that we think to be precious. How bodhicitta is more precious than everything else that we think is precious. So this will be for Saturday. Some of you, I know you have a different Dharma program on Saturday, so no worries. Please attend whatever Dharma program that you have for this weekend. These teachings is being recorded and will be uploaded on the Degung Dharmakirti YouTube channel. The intention is that we will upload them enough time ahead so that you can listen to them before the next class comes around. So some of you I know are watching on Facebook from the Urban Dharma North Carolina page. So we will continue to do live stream there. But at a certain point, we might stop that because it might just be, too much for some people, so we encourage you to join us on Zoom. Then for a suggestion to you to kind of, as something that I find helpful, is that maybe what you can do is from now on, every day you read a few verses from Bodhicharyavatara with the goal of reading from verse 1 to 1000. Doesn't matter how long. Each day, especially if you have an established daily practice. insert that, okay, each day I'm going to read 10 verses, 20 verses. Or if you are retired and you have a lot of time, you say each day I'm going to read one chapter. But read it in such a way that you are not exerting too much energy or like thinking too hard. What does this mean? What does that mean? This is a way to kind of perfume the mind. To perfume the mind. So it's a type of vasana in Sanskrit. It's a gentle way to kind of, perfume the mind with these verses. So that you don't wait until, I teach the verse and then you read the verse. Oh, okay, I see. But you can prepare by this gentle way of perfuming your mind by just each day reading a few verses. Then from cover to cover, cover to cover. And if you get into this habit, you can do this for the rest of your life. Each day a few verses, each day a few verses. Then you and Bodhicharyavatara becomes one. When you and Bodhicharyavatara become one, or as you get closer and closer to embodying Bodhicharyavatara, then doesn't matter what practice you do. Reciting one Om Mani Padme Hum excels the billions and billions of secret magical mantras that you're going to do without bodhicitta. Without bodhicitta, Mahamudra and Dzogchen turns into nihilism. Leads you to dead end. Without bodhicitta, Vajrayana becomes witchcraft, sorcery. Yeah, so we have to remember this. So at the end, we do simple dedication, but meaningful dedication with the 4 lines that I introduced earlier. The excellent and precious bodhicitta, right? Where it has not arisen, may it arise. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. Changchu
Sem Chorim Poche Ma Gye Panam Gye Gyurje Ge Ba Nyam Pa Me Pa Yang Gone Gong Du Pe War Shu. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you to the interpreters. Thank you to all of you that joined us this morning. May you be able and have the circumstances to continue to join us. If I don't have people listening, you know, I'm also not so optimistic about what I'm saying. So, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Adiós. Gracias.
Adios.
Adios.
Adiós.
Tata.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hulai. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tata.
Muito obrigada, do Brasil.
Oh, hi.